Hey guys, it's Jennifer, one of your friendly neighborhood co-hosts of this podcast that you're about to listen to. Just a quick note, there will be a period of terrible sound. Kind of not a little past the middle of this podcast, and I have no idea why it did that. It is on our guest's sound, but it was fine before, and I don't know what changed. It is only for a short period of time. It is difficult to listen to, but I wanted to leave it in because she is saying things that I felt I didn't want to cut out. So just bear with us. It will be ended soon. There is a title if you're watching this on YouTube when that happens. So I apologize for the bad sound, but it is temporary. Okay, thank you. Enjoy the episode. Bye. Hello, everyone. I am Jennifer Braverman.
And I'm Ellen Selm.
And welcome to our podcast, Stories from the Earth,
where we explore mankind's relationship and connection with the natural world.
Today we are going to be talking to Jeannie Dunn, Director of Red Moon Herbs in Asheville, North Carolina.
As a professional herbalist and North Carolina native, Jeannie has been wildcrafting and making herbal extracts, oils, and salves for over 15 years. She studied formally at both the NC School of Natural Healing and One World Healing Arts, but her herbal roots go back much further to a back-to-basics lifestyle infused in her as a child. Jeannie picked strawberries, canned vegetables, and pulled weeds from row crops with her parents and 3 siblings on a multi-generational family farm in Efland, North Carolina. Today, knowing the powerful healing properties of those quote-unquote weeds that she used to pull, Jeannie happily uses them in her fermentations, herbal extracts, and fun medicinal elixirs. Spending time in the garden and formulating new elixirs is the most fun with the business for Jeannie. In downtime, she likes to take walks with her goats as they wildcraft together, and hikes or beach trips with her human kids and partner, Michael.
So welcome, and I apologize if I pronounced your name wrong.
Oh, no worries. People get me confused with Janine Davis from NCSU. So
all the time, and it's just
yeah, it's close. Just transpose one.
I mean, you're very different. So, but the names
for Janine though. So
what?
She's inspirational. So that part's that we can inspire each other. I hope one day I can inspire her as well.
We got a chance to hear her chat. We went to a forest farming conference. That was really cool.
Nice. Good.
Oh yeah,
for our area for 30 years plus now, so it's really good. But she brought a lot of attention to herbalism for those old tobacco farmers or Carolina farmers who want to transfer their talents to something else.
Yeah. Especially when they talk about how it's Western North Carolina's rocky hillsides aren't ideal for farming, but then it's like, oh, but look what you can do.
Yeah, a very small space.
Good for herbs.
Yes.
Well, maybe we'll have her on one day as well. That would be really cool. Maybe we'll have both of you on together. Okay, all right.
Yeah.
So tell us a little bit about yourself and describe how you got into herbalism and what sparked this interest.
Sure. Yeah. So in the mid to late 70s, my dad lost his job. So all 4 of my grandparents were tobacco farmers, but then they transitioned to produce and the you pick, we pick strawberries and other things. So that's where I learned the canning skills with my mom, dad, and my grandparents. But my dad lost his job, and it kind of is like you get more creative when you've got time on your hands, but also you're like, well, how are we going to get groceries? So he built a cob oven. He built an outdoor grinder and made a shed over both the cob oven and the grinder for wheat. He started raising bees. So we would make whole wheat bread. We would grind the wheat, and then we'd make whole wheat bread as a family. They started putting, the catalogs you get in wintertime. They put different fruit trees in the yard. In the 70s, I was little, like kindergarten. And then in the 80s, my mom was more of a weed eater. She started eating dandelion and violets and chickweed and different things, but mostly dandelions. And she kind of got made fun of because nobody understood that in Piedmont, North Carolina too well. But she would probably be my first herbal influence.
Wow.
And then, from there, I think, flash forward to 16 years ago when I was about to have Sophia, my first child. And we're a blended family. I do have a stepson now, Sam, who's also 16. And I think it just hit me, not only I can grow produce, but what's going to happen when one of us is sick? So that's when I started really diving into herbalism more. Like I want to use some of the things that I saw growing up walking in the woods, bloodroot, mayapple, black cohosh, blue cohosh, these things we did pull that were in the rows, learning more about those. And I had already come to Western North Carolina because I felt really drawn to the mountains, like many people say they are. There's something about it. They have to be here. And so my goal was to come here to speak and learn from and take a walk and learn what was growing in the woods or in the meadows. So
what was your herbal education like, both, formally and informally? It sounds like you kind of started on the journey just teaching yourself and learning from your mom, whom I'm assuming is kind of self-taught, and then you went there.
Like more hers was the Back to Basics book. It's that hardbound book. You could find out how to build a spring house and, putting food by and this kind of thing. My sister Wendy's another big influence. She puts food by and grows. And then, some of the Foxfire books. Some of that early stuff. Then I guess I started collecting some of the field guides and just kind of flipping through because it was before, plant apps, right? So or it's really great now because everybody can share this information and say, what's this? So much faster. But sometimes I think we don't learn when we're just asking someone else. And then when I came to Asheville and said, okay, I'm about to have a baby, I want to dabble in this, of course I'm making like elderberry syrup and things like that, but I really wanted to get more of a handle on identity and then the medicine making part. So what teachers I had were incredible because it was a variety, like energy healing, and then someone else would be special, like Mark Williams, Corey Pine Shane. Now we've got Abby Artemisia in this area, those that specialize more in identity. That was always so intriguing for me to try to keep adding to what I don't know. But just making, even herbal first aid. That's where Mimi Hernandez and Melissa Fryer and Lupo Casero, who moved to the Northeast, they were really good with the hands-on collection. And then you got Daisy, who's really great with energy work. So it was just a nice little eclectic mix of folks here. We're very lucky that we have so much to choose from.
Good way for you to kind of get to try all of it on and kind of figure out where your niche might be, and
definitely, and
that would open up.
It's like a dabbling, and then healing wise and herbs for the childbearing year was a great influence on me when I was pregnant. And so Susan Weed has been an influence. So it was kind of neat that it came full circle and I got to get to know Karina Wood, who studied under Susan Weed, and then learn from her, and then take over Red Moon in 2012. So, but I did start a little herbal extracts company down east when my daughter was itty bitty, and I lived in my grandfather's house. So I worked at a garden center at Southern States Mebane. They had expanded their garden center, and they let me choose some of the organic herbal starts from J&B. And they also had a lot of fruiting trees. So I was just in the spirit of my granddaddy Dunn, who would put new fruit trees every year. I was doing that with herbs and edible landscaping. So that was, and then I started High Rock Farms, or High Rock. It's High Rock Farms is where my parents live, but High Rock Herbs, which doesn't exist, but it was just basically fresh weeds in organic alcohol, and it's very similar to the Wise Woman tradition and Red Moon Herbs already. So it was just a little bit of a jump start, and then I realized it was not easy at all to reinvent the wheel and start from scratch when nobody knows your name.
Yeah.
So I kudos and big hugs to everybody who does start from something from scratch without branding and marketing. It's amazing.
I have a little Etsy shop, where I make lip balms and salves and stuff, and I am currently realizing that I can't do it by myself. So if I wanted to take it to a higher level, I would need some partners. So yeah, it's a lot. It's a lot to go from making medicines in your kitchen to actually doing the business
scale.
part.
Yeah.
Because you've got a lot of other parts. You've got the marketing, you've got the legal stuff, you've got a lot of stuff. So tell us about Red Moon Herbs and then your history with it. How did you come to become its director?
It was a question in checking back with someone, because I know Karina had wanted to sell for a little while or transition out of Red Moon and focus more on Southeast Wise Women and the herbal conference in our area. And so I would touch base with her every now and then, and it just wasn't quite the right fit. The timing wasn't right. And then we finally came to a point where it did work, where I could become the director, but she could still kind of assist in the transition. And I could, I got to work a little bit at Earth Haven and see how things were run out there with Red Moon. And then we moved to the North Asheville for a little while. And then now we're out in Candler at the bottom, near the bottom of Pisgah Mountain. So
are you talking your production facilities and everything?
Yeah, production is now moved last year to the Candler area. But, it's back to, hi, I'm already doing these things. I didn't realize how closely I was to Red Moon, basically harvesting fresh things in peak season. But it's also the Wise Woman tradition, which I think y'all talked about that before on your show. It's about what is prolific, what is abundance. And so it makes so much sense to harvest weeds, that some people unwanted things that are extremely medicinal, and they're having to fight for survival in the wild. And for me, that means heavier and higher constituents or greater medicine, or, it just feels right when you go into that, because it's like, wow, how potent is this? It's just like you're taking it and as soon as you harvest with gratitude, and you're not feeling bad about the sustainability, because it will just sprout back up. You're able to make medicine right away. So even when we work with local farmers, we are getting it the same morning they pick it, and we're processing it immediately. So our processes are, it's early spring, it's young herbs and shoots, and then now it's more flowering tops, and then in late fall and early winter, it will be roots. When the energy goes back down, we'll be considering the root harvest. And we leave things, even though, a lot of herbalists say 6 weeks, we leave our roots in about 3 months, even if it's medicinal after a couple of weeks, and you could start decanting and taking a little bit of the tincture, we try to leave it a little extra.
So just out of curiosity then, it sounds like Red Moon does a combination of wildcrafted sourced herbs as well as local farm sourced herbs. What would you say percentages of one over the other? Do you get more that's cultivated, or you get more that's wild?
We're starting, just because the challenges of getting enough material, we're starting to get more locally grown Appalachian and North Carolina. So I'd say it's about 50-50 at this point.
Yeah. Nice.
And very little out of state, but we have had to, due to something, crop failure, too much water, not enough water, we have had to get out of state. And it's challenging, if any of you have ever tried to get fresh in the mail and you're dealing with that's for USPS, yeah. So we've had some fails there. So I really do, I'm always looking for new growers and Appalachian sustainable wild harvesters as well. With that, there comes some education, and I want to talk to people and get to know them. We have such abundance here; it's incredible.
Do you all grow any yourself? Given your farming background, do you grow some on your own property, or? Yeah,
my family in Eflin does grow for us some things naturally, not certified organic, but naturally no spray. And then we support a few local farms that really. And they support us. So, our Friendly Allies is one, Gentle Harmony Farm in Lexington. We have a few others that are up and coming, Mountain Herbal and Hot Springs. But there's a few that are really taking off, really. And I love to see herbal farmers that are scaling up. We are starting to grow some stuff at the church, at my own personal home here. We are also growing some things, but it's more like start. We'll be able to take 5 pounds or 10 pounds off of a couple of things this summer, but it'll be the first time we're actually able to, where we didn't have to put it on someone else's land. We also have arrangements with other farmers who say, I don't want to pick this, but you can come get it, and then we'll exchange herbal products or a little cash for the appreciation of letting us pick and harvest.
That's awesome.
It's usually wild weeds on a farm.
Well, if you ever need any mugwort, just let me know. It tries to take over my property.
Took over Ellen's garden a couple years ago.
Yeah, there was a little bit, and I was like, oh, the ladybugs like it. I'm going to leave this little bit here for the ladybugs. And then it was like, oh, you've welcomed me into your garden. I will grow everywhere.
Everywhere.
I'm trying to get different patches established on more the perimeter of the property so that I don't have to feel bad about knocking the stuff back in the garden every year.
But I had a bumper crop of mugwort to make smudge sticks from. It's definitely one of my favorite plants. I mean, Ellen wants to grow stuff, so other stuff besides mugwort,
like food, a little food garden too.
Yeah, yeah.
I'm starting to try to get some medicinals established here and there in the vein of forest farming. So I'll grow it over time, even if I'm doing it even if it takes me into my old age, to get a fully established forest farm, that's the end goal. So what would you say inspires your herbalism or inspires you about herbalism? Like to the point that, that became such an identity for your life, obviously there's a lot of inspiration there.
And that's more than one thing. One is the generosity of the plants is first. Like, even though I love humans so much, and I want to see everybody thrive and do well as humankind. I just can't believe how, sometimes we take a little and they just keep giving. So that is an inspiration. I look to them. They bring me calmness too when I'm had a really bad day. Just to go sit with the walk with the goats and the foraging with them. Just being able to sit by a creek and meditate with the plants is really a big thing. And then just my kids are an inspiration because it gives me hope for the future when I see that they're listening, even if they are like, nah, that's not my thing, that's your thing. I hear them say things to their friends, and it gives me hope that, yes, they do know how to make these things. Sam's helping some, Sophia helps some, and their friends have even helped a little with wildcrafting and harvest and preparation, and that's inspiring. And then that they care about others. They want to see this medicine get to the marginalized communities. So sometimes I'm like, are we just in a bubble, or is this? I hope this is a global disease carrying. It's as viral as some viral things. That it catches on and people care about people regardless of what they look like or who they love. And that inspires me. And so I want to get, as I learn more about every part of that and the struggles of someone being 25 years old right now, that we get this medicine that's easy to make into the hands of the people, and the education. So that's an inspiration for me constantly too. Like, don't be afraid to make your own medicine. Like, so many people are like, oh, it's too complicated, these ratios and these which percentage of alcohol, and can I add glycerin, can I add vinegar, do I boil it, decoct, or do I dry it first? There's so many different ways you can make it. Also, when I occasionally get feedback, if I've had a really hard day, but then someone says, this one plant helped my eczema, plantain oil or comfrey oil, or I had such anxiety about this past year and skullcap got me through, or motherwort. When you hear that connection they made with one plant, and then they may want to grow it, or they may want to sit with it at somebody else's garden. That's the thing that challenged me the most at the beginning. I was frustrated. I would see these dried herbs and I didn't know what they were. Like, you can make medicine with that. That's fine. It's good medicine. But to be able to know that plant from seed to when it flowers and seeds again, that whole cycle, that is when I really connected. Seeing it all 4 seasons, or at least 3.
Yeah.
Also seeing it fresh. Like, thank you, Karina Wood and Jessica Dino and Susan Wheat before them. Thank you, Red Moon, for showing people what it looks like fresh. And I do want to do that more with, local events.
When I first started exploring herbalism myself, I took a 1-day medicine making course with Karina at Earth Haven. And we did, I just remember it so clearly. Like, we went on a plant walk, and then we did like a salve, and I think we did like a tincture, and I think we did, I don't know, but I know I went home and we made a plantain oil. We started making a plantain oil, and I finished that plantain oil, and I just, and then I went from there. But that was my start, that one day class. And I learned so much from it. So it's not hard.
There's a good crossover point where once you get to have the tactile experience, hands-on, smell it, taste it, feel it, see it alive with your own eyes, that's kind of like the threshold, I think, where you're going to cross over and decide, are you going to get pulled down that rabbit hole and keep exploring and find all the hidden treasures or not, But it is interesting, how many people get a little nervous about, will I do it right or not? When you think about, like, our ancestors, it was like, pick it, try it, did it do what you needed it to do? Like, humans are just notorious for overcomplicating things sometimes. And yes, there's like right ways to do things and ideal ways to do things. But just getting started, that's half the battle right there, just get started, and then it'll open up from there.
And I think that's what that class did. And I think that's why her offering that class was so important, because it was just sort of like, get your feet wet, break, if you're scared, here's a good introduction so that you don't have to be nervous about it anymore. And she was doing the wise woman tradition. I didn't even know there was another tradition. I didn't even know there was like the weight to volume with all the measurements and everything else, so like, it's just like, I'm very fortunate that I was able to take that class and
got things started for you.
Yes.
Jeannie, we actually took a class with you a few years ago. You did a class with the OGS at one of their conferences regarding trying to encourage more people in the region to be growing medicinals. I had already had that idea in mind for my property, but that class was very helpful and I took prolific notes. So it'll be something to be implemented more as the years go on, for sure. And it was really awesome. It was nice to have somebody local telling all of us other locals, you need to get out there and grow this stuff. It's like, oh, people do want it. Okay, that's good to know.
With the sheer number of, well, as popular as Asheville is, but the whole Southeast is popular, but all the Appalachians, with as many people who want to get somewhere cooler with 4 seasons, 4 distinct seasons, and as they exit California or wherever else, we definitely, with infrastructure and development, our small yards need to become the next generation's sanctuaries, for sure, for that reason. So thank you for at least starting your woodland medicinals now. It's it's a practice in patience, isn't it?
Yeah, oh yeah. Because I put in just a couple of cohosh plants, a couple of golden seal plants, and some valerian a few years ago, and it's just been in the last couple of years that it's like, oh, there's now finally more golden seal than just what I planted, and the black cohosh has gotten really tall, and the valerian's just trying to take over half the yard, which is cool. It can do that. I don't care.
Yeah.
You know, it's like, oh, now, yeah, the whole perennial, what is it? First they crawl, then they creep, then they leap, is like a saying. And it's like, oh, I can definitely see how that happens, like year in, year out. It's growing, which is awesome.
And the valerian is from we went to the herb festival, herb fair, and we bought a bunch of plants, and then Ellen planted on this hill, and basically it's like, well, what plants are still here? And the valerian was extremely successful, so which was fun, especially since I think hopefully this winter maybe we'll make some tincture out of it.
There's definitely enough to start digging some roots now, I think.
Yeah. That's a popular one. We don't offer that one, and we get a lot of requests. So let me know when you have your extract, because there's people in Nashville that really want that one. So.
Okay. Do you want like the tincture, or do you get just the roots, or?
There's a couple of people that have asked for fresh roots too. So if you decide you're just too prolific and you want to, that's definitely one, I think, that some people would love you sharing or selling to them, you know. I love the swaps in this area. That's a part of Asheville that I just wholeheartedly embrace, and I'm glad we're in this community where there's seed swaps and plant swaps, and you know, you can find what you're looking for. Of course, the Asheville Art Fest is fabulous, and I'm on the board, and big shout out to A.D. Reed, who was the director, and the others on the board who volunteered their time. And yeah, it was tough to move that venue this year, but we did it. We've kind of outgrown the farmers market, even though a lot of people love it.
That's amazing, because that place is already pretty big. So, geez.
Yeah, it was slammed. It was a little awkward on Saturday. It was a little too crowded, but you know, it was successful overall. But the farmers market is a beautiful place, and I do hope there'll continue to be some beautiful herb fest there too. We'll see what happens in 2022.
Hopefully we'll get there this 2022. I wasn't able to get there this year, so but
and we offered more workshops this year, free workshops. So yeah, this is something to look forward to when people are looking for somewhere to go. There's a lot of, you know, plant walks in our area too that are reasonable. We had quite a few teachers, so on sliding scale, or, you know, keeping the cost low. But hopefully Red Moon can sponsor some of those events in the future as well, more and more.
Awesome. Yeah, and we'll put a link to the Asheville Herb Festival in the show notes and in the description as well. So if anyone wants to check it out, and you're in the area or close to the area, it's totally amazing. You can find. Actually, I've also done some videos on our trip to the Herb Festival, so I'll put those down there too. And I just realized that I never changed. If you're watching on YouTube and you see the little, you're not going to see the little symbol for the Stories for the Earth. You'll see my little pink tree. That's for my other YouTube channel, so I apologize. I forgot to change the graphics. But So yeah, I documented that journey when we bought all those plants for Ellen's land and with the Valerian, and so I'll put that down so everyone can see sort of the amazingness of, you know, because when you go to a nursery or a plant store, you do see some medicinal herbs, but you don't see the range of medicinal herbs that you see at the Herb Fest, which is really, really cool.
It is an educational experience just to walk around and talk to the farmers. And there's more forest farmed herbs too, which is fabulous. And a lot of products. I mean, you can come by and say hi to me and other, like Lori Collins Jenkins was there this year, and other makers. It's a good networking experience, even if you're not there to buy plants. There's a lot of makers.
Awesome.
I was going to ask, Ellen, now that you've settled in and you've got some land, and have you seen like a wild herb show up that wasn't there when you first moved in? Is there anything? Because that's what I love to see that happen. Like last year, in a time where lung support was, important, lobelia and flata all around my house and in the woods behind it. And other herbalists told me the same thing. They've never seen as much lobelia and flata, and that is a low dose botanical that is an emetic in larger quantities, but helps with smoking cessation and asthmatic issues, and lung support, and that one showed up. So same thing with some weeds, like dandy sometimes shows up in the house of the person who needs some liver support, who's hitting the tequila.
Right? Well, I didn't initially notice any chickweed on my property, and then a couple years in, I got a little bit of chickweed, and then this year I just had a whole bunch of chickweed in a different place than where it originally was too. So it's not even like the one patch spread. It's like, okay, I'm gonna come up closer to you somehow. And I didn't have ramps on the property initially, but my neighbor does, like further back on the back side of my property. And then year before last, I just happened to notice in my little wooded area where it's not the typical forested area that they tend to like, because it's a more north slope piney woods. But there were a couple of ramps in there. So I'm like, okay, well, maybe if I just let them be, they'll do their thing. And it's not, since then, I've gotten a few cut root heads from a friend who has a bunch on her property in order to try to start some on another area of my property where it might be more conducive for ramps, just in case the volunteered don't make it. But yeah, I mean, it's definitely been fun just to kind of wander around and see what there is to see and learn the uses of what is here. I had Craig Mauney, the extension agent, come out the year that I bought my property and walk around with me, and he pointed out the bloodroot, because that was a plant. I grew up in Western North Carolina, but that was not a plant that I was really familiar with, because even in terms of medicine, because it's such a potent herb and you have to kind of have very specific and careful uses with it, it's not one that's super commercially popular. I just wasn't familiar with it. And he was like, oh, look, you got some bloodroot there. And he kind of gave me my initial lesson in that. And since then, I've seen it just start to spread and take over. It likes those piney woods. So yeah, it's been nice. It keeps trying to turn into a jungle. So it's, you're ever fighting that battle of like the balance of, I want the things that are there to be there, but some things have to be kept under control or they're going to smother it out,
Like multiflora rose and privet.
She's got a bunch.
Yes. Bittersweet, and So.
Yeah. I'd like to think that since I don't have any land, I live in town, and I use Ellen's land to wildcraft on. I like to think that she has plants pop up because I need them. I was like, I need chickweed, and that's why she has the chickweed.
Well, yeah, and then the violets spread.
The violet.
Like you needed the violet oil, and now I have like way more violets.
Yeah.
Say it out loud, and the universe provides, right?
Yep.
Definitely. The plants are definitely listening. Phenomenal how that happens. Even if we didn't say it out loud too. Sometimes we're just thinking it. our violets, by not cutting the grass for a while, and the violets kind of spread, and then we just cut around them now. They're just one big circle of violets.
Oh, that's cool.
So, yeah.
I was using my parents' violets, and they had this row of forsythia plants and bushes, and the violets grew under them. So they were like a whole bunch, and they were all protected. So they would just get really, really big, and then when they got like really big, I would just like stuff, make oil from it all at once. And then my dad would go and weed eat under it. But it was like the perfect place for violets. And it made it so easy to make that oil because they can be real small, but I was able to wait until they were so big, and it was shady under there and everything. So it was real cool.
Wildcrafting in 1/4 of the time, right? When they get the size of your hand.
Yeah, I was just like, and then I was like, especially also like the plantains when they're like on the side of the road and they're like humongous, and you're like, man, I can't wildcraft them from this side of the road, but they're as big as my hand.
I guess they're just trying to make seeds, right? They're in tough places. They're just gonna proliferate. Like elder beside the road, like on a busy road. You're like, why is all this? Why can't we find this elder on a country road, right?
So if anyone doesn't know, we're talking about you shouldn't wildcraft right by the road, as a rule, because it just sort of the plants will suck up all that road junk. So you want to try to at least, I think it's like at least 50 feet from a road, preferably in land the history of. So in a perfect world. What is your definition of health and healing?
Can I say that sometimes I don't always follow?
Yeah, definitely.
Okay, ideally it would be a lot of self-care, and that's part of the wise woman tradition too, that we do. Sometimes it's doing nothing, but it's literally doing nothing, just sitting there and breathing through and resting our minds. That's part of our healing. One of my missions since my daughter Sophia was little and Sam came into my life, Michael came into my life 9 years ago, was to try to eat as much local as we possibly could. Like even local supersedes organic. I don't want high mileage fruit as much as I can. Finding local carrots, that's just heaven right there compared to the mass manufactured monocrop of organic carrots. I know if you've tasted a local carrot, you know the difference. So eating more food is medicine. Although I was, living without regrets. I didn't meet Frank Cook other than listening to him online, but I do try to eat something wild every day because rest in peace, Frank Cook. But I think that's part of good health and nutrition. If you can have access, trying to find that friend that has the land, right? Like Ellen has the land, and getting some of that. And it could be that you just make a vinegar, a chickweed vinegar or violet vinegar. And so you're sprinkling a little bit of that wildness every day on something that you eat, a salad or greens. So that's something I've committed to. But more, fresh, clean water, getting to know just a few herbs that become your allies, nourishing herbal infusions that Susan Weed makes super popular, and Karina Wood follows that, and many wise woman tradition folks do that as well. Drinking a lot of herb. If you don't know what an infusion is, it's like double this, a quart size. You've got 1 weighed ounce of herb, which comes to about that on a quart jar. Pour boiling water over it, let it sit 4 to 8 hours, and strain that and drink on that for a day. And that nourishment to me is important for our health. Now, I don't do it as often as I should on that, but it's something that does make me feel great when I do it.
For a super strong tea, basically.
Yes, a very strong tea. And if you don't like the taste of nettle because it's earthy or too green of a drink, you can always add a little honey or sweetener. It's nice as a chai. You could even add spices and your favorite nut beverage or milk. Ice it in the summer. It's really refreshing in the summer, iced. Red clover. This is from Gentle Harmony Farm. Isn't that pretty? Recently brought to us.
Wow.
Yeah, red clover is another great nourishing infusion. Milky Oats is another one, or oat straw. And here's their Milky Oats. I had a few left that I dehydrated. But you want to break those up before you pour boiling water over them.
Okay.
All of these are really part of the best regimen for me. And a little downtime away from everybody's grain.
I appreciate that thought of incorporating some little bit of wild every day, even if it's just as easy as putting up a vinegar and just doing a little bit of that every day. Like it's just like so, I have a tendency, and I think a lot of people have a tendency to be like, if you're going to be into this thing, you just got to do it to the max. And it's like, so consequently, you have that kind of time. You're like, well, I'll get to it later. So that was just a very grounding moment to hear you be like, just a little bit. I'm like, oh, that would be very easy and doable.
Yeah, and this is June. So red clover blossoms in vinegar, 1 part weighed out. I mean, you could do it folk, like you learned, like we all learned. The wise, stuff the red clover blossoms with the top 3 leaves in a jar and pour vinegar over it, or 1 weighed ounce to 4 parts organic raw apple cider vinegar. There's also violets still out there. What else is out there right now? There's a lot of great things that would go in vinegar that aren't. Now, motherwort, for instance, as it starts to flower, it gets very bitter. So it could become more of a digestive bitter if you're going to pick it later. Young motherwort, mugwort's a great one too. To help with the dreams and the mineral intake. There you go. Let's all go to Ellen's house.
Make some mugwort vinegar. Put up a couple of gallons of it.
Down with an herb tray. That's the other thing. We got to look to our resources in our community. You make the one thing. I'll bring something different. Jennifer will bring something different. We'll invite some pals, and then we'll have a whole apothecary. Right?
Ooh, that's a good idea. I know there's an herb swap that's happening. That's new. I think Sierra Foley.
Yes. Yes, I did get some plants and leave some plants. That was really nice. So if that evolves into herbal extracts and vinegars and oils and salve swap, that would be wonderful. Root Calls out in Fairview. We have done a couple of little free classes there, and come get affordable tinctures and just bring your own bottle or buy a bottle. And there was a suggested donation of like $2 and 50 cents for a bottle if you didn't have it. So, we wanted to make it accessible. And then the donations went to a couple of causes, one being Root Cause, which also known as the Lord's Acre before. Did I say that? Yeah. So little gardens around town. That's a great place for a plant swap or short class. We did an herbal vinegars class. It's the easiest because you can just wildcraft things and do it right then. Chop it up and take it home. Let it sit 2 to 6 weeks and then use it.
I just can't help it. Like I'm at work and I work in nothing to do with herbalism. And so I just can't help end up talking about it with my coworkers. I've taught one of them how to make a herbal infusion. She's real stressed out and everything. So I like to do Tulsi. And so I brought it into her and I was like, here you go. You put 2 handfuls in, you put boiling water on, you got to let it sit overnight. And then she tried and she's like, hey, it was really good. I thought it'd be weird, and I'm like, I wouldn't do that to you the first time, So she's like, it's really tasty. It was really good. It's just really, I was like, yeah, you'll just, after you do it a couple of times, it'll be really easy. You don't even think about this whole process. Also, nettle tea with honey in it. The first time I did that, it took it to another level. So I would definitely suggest adding some honey to your nettle tea.
Now, Jeannie, just as a little side note to talking about nettle in your profession, I'd be curious to hear what you know about it. I have heard that nettle at its most mature point, when it's getting ready to flower or has flowered, at that point, it's not safe for people with kidney issues. But then sometimes you see nettle in kidney formulas, but it's my understanding that they're harvesting it when it's still just a baby coming up in the springtime. And if you miss that window, you gotta wait. Just for kidney people. Anybody else maybe you might use it when it's a little more mature.
So, some people will keep cutting it and to keep it from flowering and seeding out, and then that's how they harvest. We prefer that it's all the spring stuff, the young first cut. I do think some of the larger commercial companies are having to do multiple cuts. So, but they're still keeping it from flowering out all the way. But my honey's from the Czech Republic, and he comes from a culture of fruits and herbs, and his mom wildcrafts St. John's flowers and makes an oil. So I saw nettles in their garden. It was late summer, and it had not flowered too much, but some of it had. And I decided I'd make a soup. I'd make a fresh infused tea. And then we decided, okay, let's go to downtown Prague. And I think I stopped in about 10 restrooms. So it did irritate my bladder by drinking it beyond its young spring version. Yeah, so I do think it might irritate bladder or kidneys, even if somebody is well, without kidney issues. So yeah, once it goes, but nettle seed is very potent medicine for reproductive organs and our stamina and strength. So maybe just consider harvesting those seed tops and drying them and using them in a different, like sprinkling on food or making a tea out of the nettle seed or a tincture.
I used to be able to drink the nettle infusion, and I can't now. Some health issues, and it makes me pee instantly. Like I just have to pee, and I've never tried the seed. And there's a reason why I wanted to do the nettle, because it's got so much of that, the minerals and the, it's so
nutritious.
So good. Yeah, so nutritious.
So maybe just, the vinegar is really good for pulling the minerals out. We did a study right before I became director of Red Moon. It's actually I'd like to do another to see about concentrations of calcium and magnesium and zinc and different things that the apple cider vinegar, ACV, pulled out. So you could just do maybe nettles in vinegar, fresh nettles, 1 part to 4 parts vinegar, and use that on your food without that bladder issue. Yeah, I hear that from a lot of folks. They'll drink nettles too late in the day, and then they have to urinate all night. So it may be just 1 cup in the morning, but if your job doesn't allow a lot of frequent breaks, nettles is definitely one that will increase urination. Nettle root is and saw palmetto in a prostate blend, but nettle root could be another good one for reproductive health and energy. But the nettles in the vinegar, when we did that, the calcium was it 10 times as much, and then the magnesium was 9 times. Now vinegar doesn't have a lot of calcium and magnesium occurring naturally in it, but it just bumped it up, and there was some zinc and other trace minerals. So that was exciting to see that. So without a bunch of expensive testing, why not grow some of the, like the chickweed and the mugwort, and the nettle is in your vinegar, and you're probably going to be getting things that vitamins and minerals you didn't know, minerals mostly,
So Jeannie, what do you feel like is the role of herbalism? In some ways, it's getting trendier. There's people that would walk into a health food store today that wouldn't have done it 10, 15 years ago. And in some ways, it's helped the industry, and in some ways, it might have hurt some things, ecologically, if people aren't being careful and over harvesting, etc. But it's definitely something that's been with mankind. It's not going to go away. What is herbalism's role in our modern world, and maybe the future of it that you'd like to see?
Those that have worked so hard to get here in the last, let's say, 50 years, they've been doing this and not being understood. Now they don't have to explain themselves, right? It becomes more common. That's good. I am concerned about the overharvest of certain things. Like people will jump on the bandwagon of like moringa, kava, kratom, and then then you've got the FDA coming down to investigate these opiate-like, products or things that are pain relievers or stimulants like ephedra. It got taken off the market. but my heart warmed a lot last year with everybody growing, asking more questions, being more attentive. Maybe they just have more time on their hands. Maybe they thought about their health, during the middle of a health crisis. But it felt like people were wondering, what's the future of my kids going to look like? Oh, let me do some container gardening on my patio, So I look for the day when we do care about the forest more than the trees and the pulp, the paper pulp, and the furniture harvest. That like look what's underneath that tree, please, for a minute. So that's something I'm super passionate about. I do support United Plant Savers. I hope more people will follow. Even if you're not a member or supporter, follow what's on the at-risk list. It's changing. Follow, what is for what. That's the other list, think about growing it because, like, some of these things have great substitutes that are weeds. Like golden seal. Golden seal should probably be back, not just at risk, but endangered. And I've never seen it in the wild. I've seen ginseng in the wild. I've seen gentian in the wild. I've never seen golden seal in North Carolina in the wild unless someone wild simulated it or forest farmed it. So maybe I'm not getting out enough. Maybe I just need to get out more. But like you've got the Japanese barberry that's in the woods. That has berberine. I know golden seal has other constituents that make it special. But we could be harvesting yellow root, which is prolific by the creeks. And you could still like just do a partial harvest and put it back. You don't have to use it all. Barberry, mahonia, these things that make nice substitutes. Let's look into those. But what is herbalism? It's going to be affordable healthcare for everybody. And I know that's a line already used, the health industry, and it's going to get integrated more. I know we keep saying we wish that would happen, but it is. There's going to be more pop-up shops with first aid and herbal medics, but then I do think we see more. I've seen in hospice, I've seen nurses practice healing touch and Reiki as someone is exiting this world. I've seen more. I overheard someone say they were looking for Tamiflu at the CVS, and they said, just go get you some elderberry extract. And that was the pharmacist. And
wow.
Yes, we have arrived. So that's what the future is going to be. Integrate my niece. One of my nieces is studying to be a PA. I would say that, she's going to integrate herbs and other techniques and body work and energy healing. And her generation, and she's a millennial, will be the ones that will bring it to the, where. And you've got doctors saying, hey, this is not in my wheelhouse, but tell me more about it. And they're open to listening to people. I'm sure they're hearing the same things. Like people are like, well, I got to use this CBD. This works, right? I hear everybody's using it. But at least they're open to saying, if that's going to help you and there's no herb-drug interaction, yes, you can use it.
Yeah.
So that's what I think. Herbalists are going to have to maybe even work in doctor's offices one day. And the day that we become part of the system will be a very celebratory day, right? When it's an insurance write-off.
I would love that, and I would have loved to be able to study herbalism at a university and then go work in a doctor's office and practice. That's what I think that back, when I discovered this thing called herbalism, I'm like, yes, I'm interested in it. This is what I want to do. This is what I want to be a part of. If there was such a tract if there was such an opportunity, then that's what I would go into. And there's a need. I think that the need is just going to be so great that it's just going to kind of nudge the system in that direction. That's what I think you're saying, and that's also what I hope happens.
And if enough of us speak out and say, this is what we're doing, right? And this is what and it's not that we're saying no science.
Right, yes.
We appreciate science. We appreciate surgery when it's necessary. We're just saying could be helpful. And after surgery or before surgery to prepare your immune system. You can do these things, right?
I actually just wrote an article when I advertise my business locally here in Haywood County. I sometimes write little articles for this local paper called Positively Haywood that just goes out to mailboxes in this county. And the one that I just wrote for the upcoming month is kind of focusing on helping people make that realization that what we sometimes consider like alternative medicine really isn't so far off the mark, because there's at least 40% of our pharmaceutical registered trademark drugs are still plant derived, or then on top of that you've got fungal derived and bacterial derived, and so we're even modern medicine isn't as far removed from the natural world as some people sometimes delineate in their mind. And I was just trying to write this little short piece to get people to think about, because the more we can be thinking complementary from both sides of the fence, the easier it's going to be for it to hopefully meet in the middle and everybody kind of help each other out instead of trying to butt heads all the time.
And we're not saying pharmaceuticals have to go away.
Oh no.
That's compliment. So.
There's a place for herbal medicine. There's a place for these medicines. There's a place for acupuncture, massage, and all of these things. And they're not congruous. They're not. They fit together. They can work with each other. And it's a puzzle piece that's just missing from our healthcare system. I as a patient over the years have had to bring that in. I'd have to do my own herbal part and then go to the doctor and marry them together by myself, and sort of,
it takes a lot of effort when you're not feeling well, doesn't it?
It does.
If you don't have an advocate saying, "Oh, did you remember to drink this infusion or add these supplements to your regimen?" Sometimes I forget.
Or you're trying to get
someone else.
Yeah. Or you're trying to get your doctor to sort of not think you're so strange or weird and listen to you. I have been fortunate in my doctors, but there's been a few that have, it hasn't been the best outcome. It's a process.
Legs over, they're just not getting it, right? No, and it doesn't mean we don't respect what they do. It's just a little respect the other way would be nice. That we didn't have as many years of school. Just hear me out, kind of thing, right?
Yeah, exactly.
I don't know though. Sometimes I'd say a lot of herbalists I've met, yourself included, have so many years of study. It's just, it's different. You didn't necessarily maybe break the bank or get a fancy certificate on the wall, but the time investment, the brain power is there. So seeing that part of it legitimized more, I think, would be really beneficial. Jeannie, so what are some ways that you like to connect with the natural world and stay grounded in these crazy times, especially that we've been going through this last year, but even in general, the self-care piece you were talking about?
I think when I get to I definitely, because I'm a doer, I'm very hands-on, and my mind is full of a lot of ideas. I vocalize them as well. And I know I can frustrate people because I'm just thinking out loud and like, oh, what do you think of this idea? And wouldn't this be good if we threw it? And sometimes I can make those things happen just in a matter of days. Like, let's throw together a plant swap, or let's do another herb fest, on the side. And it just tends to flow. But my mind is not very restful sometimes. So to get my hands in the dirt literally will calm me down, and my mind can just kind of go blank for a bit. The petting the goats. I love cats and goats. That helps. Taking my shoes off and touching the bare ground with my feet. That's also helpful. And getting body work, energy work. I have a cousin that's in the Burnsville area who's fabulous, and I think like Sarah Thomas? Yeah, that the folks that have studied under Sarah Thomas, a lot of times they have a similar practice, and that work can be very healing. And being able to plant something and just see it through the seasons, once again, that is just a big, that warms my heart. And then to be able to share it with people, that keeps me going on my path.
Kind of keeps you in touch both with the earth and the community.
It's definitely a time to say no. That is a challenge. That has been a challenge for me because I want to be so involved, and there's so many fun things to do and so many events you can attend. So being able to just say no for my own health and getting grounded again, taking an afternoon off, taking a walk, putting my feet in a creek too.
Yeah.
Water, earth, and air together. Like last year, I did feel like it was getting a little out of hand because we couldn't keep up. And so it was like shockingly good, but totally out of left field that we didn't know that because we harvest in, peak seasons and we have to plan once a year for something that's going to get picked in spring, right? So we kind of guesstimate what we might be able. So we just had to be out of some things, and that's okay too. But I really did want to get it to the people, and I was like, it warmed me so much that they believed in herbalism before anyone knew really what was going on last year. Mm-hmm. They were like looking to things like Ella Campaign and violet and wild cherry bark. So, and asking questions and seeing what they might want to grow. Another thing that probably grounds me and it's like the Easter egg hunt of morels, or seeing something in the wild and not touching it, but just photographing it. And those kind of things can take me, give me a little ecstasy and happiness. And so carving out a little time to go do that, whatever it is, whatever season it is, like, if I see osha in the wild, Eastern osha, Ligusticum canadensis, I haven't seen much of that. So we did see that this past year, and that made me really happy to see that in spring.
It's like Mother Nature's scavenger hunt.
Yeah.
Totally. Yeah.
So before we started recording, we were chatting about books. And I was just wondering if you would tell us what are some favorite herbal books that you would like to share, or maybe a off-topic book of yours that you're currently reading or want to read that is maybe not about herbalism. I'll just put that out there.
I didn't think about that, but the things that are fictional, they can be fun too. It's been a while since I've read this series, but the Isla, Clan of the Cave Bear, that writer. Mm-hmm. I love that book. My dad did me a sweet favor, and I've misplaced the paper. He took and wrote down every herb that was mentioned in that book.
Really?
And because she's an herbalist from caveman times, as she evolves. And there's several species of human on the planet at that time who've evolved in different stages. But as fiction, is it Diane Gabaldon or something. I can't remember how to pronounce her name, but that series, if you want to get lost, is kind of like historical romance is the category, but it's kind of neat to see what she did and mentioning all those herbs in the first book. It's the most brutal of the 4, 5, 6 books, but yeah. So that one was like, before I ever became an herbalist, I saw that and I'm like, oh, somebody's talking about this. And I love movies like that actually, even though I've seen some, they walk through a meadow or forest and they place something that's not the real herb. And you're like, that is not whatever, you know. But it's cool when you do see witchy people, kitchen witches or witches in movies. My favorite absolute book is Making Plant Medicine because I'm such a doer and maker. So Richo Cech's book. And then let's see, an inspiration for me, Robin Rose Bennett just moves me with her writings, but more in person. She is just, she calls to my heart when she speaks because it's not just on this planetary level. There's something about it. She just feels the energy of the room and can just take a crowd, at least for me. It's moved me to tears and laughter. And she can just be talking about nettles or plantain, but you know. So Gift of Healing Herbs is one of her books. And then there's a magic book as well. Magical Herbalism? No, I can't remember. And then one book that was still herbal related, but more the Rosita Arvigo's Sastoon, where she studied with Don Eligio Pansi in Belize, was it? Then created space there. She had to really work hard to get that apprenticeship. He was not going to accept her because she wasn't a local. So that's a really riveting book. And Healing Wise, I think I mentioned that already. That was one of the first books I read. Dr. James Duke, it's more generic, but Green Pharmacy is really good. He studied so much and, you know, brought so much inspiration to so many other herbalists. That Rosemary Gladstar's books are great. I like recipes, and it's always fun because you can make something with one of her books.
I'll put the links so when everybody watches this back or listens to it, all the information for all the books will be in the description.
Okay.
So everyone can check out all those books that you mentioned. And I have a few of them. I don't have all of them, but they're definitely, Making Plant Medicine has been on my list for a very long time.
Richo also does a cultivating the medicinal herb grower or something like that. So if you lean more towards you don't want to make medicine, but you want to grow it, he's got a book for that too.
Oh, cool.
Really helpful.
Okay.
So on that note, with your experience, what advice would you give to a budding herbalist and or medicinal plant farmer? Like say they're at where you were 15 years ago.
Apprentice with someone that's local in your community that you would either grow and you help them, or farm intern, or medicine make together. I definitely go on YouTube and people locally, even here in our community. Juliet has a couple of free little intros to her program. And just, you know, and do it regionally. Try to find someone within your region because like what grows in the desert's not here. And if you want to connect with those plants, try to find someone you can work under. Definitely like Mr. K's used bookstore. I got a lot of great stuff there. I got a lot of great stuff from the library. Don't forget the online resources with the library where you can check out books that are digital. Yeah, just don't be afraid to ask questions in plant groups and herbalist medicine maker groups, right? There's such good resources now. You can ask and without fear and without being made fun of or anything. People aren't going to judge you. I mean, there will be some judgment, but ignore that, you know, right? People do judge, but they don't. I think their intentions are good overall. They're just, there's, like something like poke. Poke is very powerful.
Right.
It should be handled with care. It will make your eyes puff up. If you don't have gloves on, your hands will break out if you're working with a root. So, like there are some, and making sure you properly identify something, with a mushroom and the few poisonous plants we have in our area. But if you get, under the wing of someone and you're willing and able to do the dirty work, they're very grateful to have you. There's a lot of herbalists I know that feel a little overwhelmed, or gardeners, they could always use an extra set of hands, so they'll help. The local gardens, the root cause appreciates volunteers. I think there's other gardens around town. Ask around and see. We started, my daughter and I were helping at the school garden, but you can be a volunteer at a school as well. You could always use more edible landscaping, right? But the books, free. They're free at the library too,
And they also have our library has the library perpetual library book sale, and they're, you can go in there and they're like, maybe $1 or less, which is really cool. So also you can find things in there to buy if you wanted to.
Well, maybe it's time for a book swap too, right?
Oh, yeah. Well, I don't know.
And book swap. You can't give them up, can you, Jenna?
No, I can't.
So I'm like, that's gonna be hard.
My copy of my Rosemary Gladstar is oh my gosh, it's her herbal book for women, and I'm forgetting the name of it, but it's falling apart because I've used it so much. So I bought a new copy, and then my friend at work, the person who I taught how to make the tea, she was having some issues, and I was like, well, here's this book, and I was like, I'll loan it to you, but I was like, you never get the books back, so basically I wanted to give it to her anyway.
That's great. Yeah, that's a good concept too. Just like, if this doesn't come back to me, it's okay.
Yeah, I was like, because actually a new copy is like, they're like $12. So but I knew that she may not accept just a straight out gift. So and she listens to this podcast. So hi, Heather. I want to.
You worked all day, right? Before this?
I did work today. Yes, I did.
I'm impressed.
But
Still going strong.
Yes, definitely. Well, my work is for the money right now, and this is for the love. So one day I hope to marry the two and do what I love for money, but right now, yeah. Oh my gosh, my brain is spazzing out.
I totally understand. I'm a part-time realtor, by the way.
Oh, are you?
And I've done property management of, things for personal and affordable housing. And it's near and dear to my heart to do some of that in the future that integrates a little bit of herbal gardens with some affordable housing in the Buncombe County area. So I hope those
an idea whose time has long come.
yeah. We can't wait for a very wealthy person to come into town and say, yes, I want to build plenty of little villages. It's not.
I wish they would.
Yeah.
Because we were looking for a house and it's been a disaster. It's been
it's tough. It's tough to show property. They get snatched up before.
Yeah.
You can even show it. So.
We had to back out of a house that we finally were able to put an offer on and got that far in the process, but it didn't look like it needed a lot of work, and it did need a lot of work, and we don't have a lot to do. We just have the money to buy maybe a house, and we don't have the money to fix too much on a house. And the issues are that a lot of the houses that are in our price range need work.
Yeah. Yeah. It's becoming more and more challenging. Yes.
Yeah.
There's going to be hopefully systems in place with some modular stuff or something coming down the line that's still earth friendly and modular. Well, let's hope that will show itself one day soon.
Someone's going to have the idea to help with the kind of the situation, because Asheville has if anyone lives in Asheville, you know about the housing and everything. So that's a whole nother topic.
Yeah.
Do you have any new and exciting ventures coming up that you'd like to share with the audience?
The book swap, right? That's it.
Yeah, no,
we're gonna do that. I'm not spontaneous with my ideas. So sometimes if they're gonna make it, it might be next week that we do. So we're really excited at where we are now, because the space we got was kind of a miracle. It's a Redmond production, but we also call the chapel the Church of the Holy Basil. And so we'll have some events out there. It's a little far out, 30 minutes to downtown for some. So the concept might be that we just do day classes where it's more like bring your lunch. We do one session in the morning and then something in the afternoon and picnic together. So for Red Moon, we hope to have some wild food dinners. Some really cool topics, maybe even a music venue or two, because the chapel might seat 80 to 100 people in times when we don't need to socially distance. But it's still, if you are interested in using the space that's not our production and order fulfillment, give me a shout via email. It's Jeannie@redmoonherbs.com, and I can supply that for the community. The thing it's free for the rest of this year, and then there'll be a low cost if someone does want to use the space for the day. So that's the most exciting thing we have going on. And we're putting some gardens in. So as they build, people can do like a walking educational thing. There's a little bit of forest behind it. So hopefully we'll have a walking trail with woodland medicinals soon, but maybe by next summer.
Yeah. So you're branching out into some educational areas. That's small.
Really... Yeah, and hopefully work up to a weekend workshop retreat, because something passionate for me is not being a prepper per se, but being prepared, emergency preparedness, grid skills, bringing some of those teachers. We have a lot of those earth skills folks in the area to come in and teach one of their skills. Like I love Nancy Basket for kudzu basketry, and she does pine baskets as well and other things. Some of those teachers could be featured, or it could be a weekend of got lost in the woods, how do I survive, that kind of thing. And teachers like that. So that's our goal.
So it sounds like it's a pretty big space you got, like the buildings and the land is.
It's only on an acre, but there's a little creek that's kind of communities area. So there may be some meditative area and picnic area that's not on our property, but beside it. There's also a campground near us, a dry campground. So people could put their tents there and just pay that property owner. So there's room for some retreats. Yeah. And the church is probably 1,200 square feet it's a small church, but we have a little kitchenette and a double sink for these kind of classes that's separate from our production area, and a shower and a restroom.
Yeah, that's a good setup. That's awesome. So will that be something that folks can find an online presence for separate of Red Moon? Like it'll be the Church of the Holy Basil will have its own website, have its own Facebook, etc., to keep up with what you're doing? Or
well, for now, redmoonherbs.com. We sometimes just have a classes link there, so I think we'll put it there for now. But yeah, it might just evolve to where it's so big that and the community participates, it becomes its own thing. That would be great.
I don't see why not. I don't see why it couldn't get there.
Yeah, and we do take apprentices or interns, a couple at a time. So if someone does want to intern with Red Moon, it's a 4-hour to 8-hour a week commitment for 3 months. And then you learn a little bit about some medicine making skills and some processing. It's not all just fun and games, and this is, sometimes it's bagging herbs or helping in the garden. But we're not taking apprentices at the moment, but we will in the near future. So you can email info@redmoonherbs.com if you're interested in apprentice or internship.
Are those, because I work like during the day, Monday through Friday. So is that something that like someone could do who work those time of hours, or
it's a little challenging, but occasionally there might be something on the weekend, but usually it's a Monday through Friday opportunity. But sometimes we're doing shows and fairs. Someone could assist with that, or a wild harvest, something maybe monthly, like a once a month thing.
I did not know you guys offered internships. That's awesome. All right.
And there's some product trade for the hours you put in. No pay, but there is some products. So.
And you get to learn, though. So
yeah. So hopefully more herbalists are going out there, and some are relocating and planting seeds in all the world, right? That's the goal. Because we can't all sustain ourselves in Asheville, even though it would be great if we could stay together, right? It's a little mecca of herbies. But like Ellen's in Haywood County, and it's going to get further and further out, and this is great. That's how we catch the fire. Right?
Well, before we go, do you have anything that you would like to add or like to mention before we wrap up?
We're always looking for growers, so keep putting those woodland medicinals that are on United Plant Savers at-risk list. Please put them in the ground wherever you are. And you can always email me if you have a question about how you do some of the things we're doing in Asheville as far as plant swaps and medicine making days, or herbal first aid, herbal medic, some of those events that happen here. Feel free to reach out, and we can share information in other communities.
And I'll pop is it okay for me to pop your email into the description? Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Cool. Awesome. Well, I'd like to thank everyone for joining us today. I'd like to thank Jeannie for joining us today and chatting with us. And all the information will be in the description. If you're watching on YouTube, they'll be in the show notes. If you're listening on Anchor or Spotify, follow us on Anchor or Spotify. We're on YouTube. We have an Instagram. We have a Facebook group. If you'd like to join us there. Also, if you would like to support this podcast with your dollars, you just go to Anchor, you go to the support page, and you can support us for $1, $5, or $10 a month. We appreciate that. It goes to help us take this show on the road so we can do some traveling, and now that we're all vaccinated, go to herb fairs and conferences that are not in Asheville and showcase all that awesomeness.
We are going to be having a little bit of a summer vacation for the show here and take the month of July off from podcasting, but we will be resuming in August with hopefully a couple of exciting guests. I'll name drop one of them, but we're working on getting Linda Black Elk, who is an indigenous ethnobotanist, herbalist, educator, and water protector who helped organize and manage the medic tent at the Standing Rock pipeline protest, which is how I found out about her. But we'll hopefully be having a really cool chat with her whenever we come back in August.
And we are moving to a new format. We're going to twice a month instead of 3 times a month. We're going to be having episodes drop the 2nd and the 4th Wednesday of each month. So thank you again for joining us, and we will talk to you next time.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.